Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on studying in the USA. My name is Mike Burke, and I'm the Director of International Student Services here at Duquesne University, and I'd like to welcome you no matter what time of day it is or where you are from. Today, I'm joined by two of my co-hosts, Mia Mipagama, an educational technology student working on her doctorate. Good morning, Mia.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And also our Assistant Director of International Admissions, Megan Evangelist. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Good morning, Mike and Mia.
Okay, so let's begin, and we're going to talk a little bit about what studying in the USA is like. And I think one of the very first questions we want to ask ourselves is, where do we want to study? So you can break that down into two pretty simple choices on whether you want to study in an urban environment or a rural environment. So universities located in rural environments tend to have less distractions, but it's a more insular environment. However, universities set in an urban environment give you access to more activities and a greater degree of diversity. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Duquesne University, and that is located in an urban environment here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So as you can see by the map, Pittsburgh is located in the northeast part of the United States, about halfway between Chicago and New York. Pittsburgh is about an hour-and-a-half plane ride from any of those major metropolitan cities such as New York, Philadelphia, Boston, or Chicago. However, I think Pittsburgh does have three distinct advantages over those other major metropolitan areas. And one is our size. Although we are a city, we're not quite as sprawling and as large, and thus we're a little easier to navigate. In addition, we also have a lower crime rate in Pittsburgh than we do in these other larger cities. And finally, Pittsburgh also has a lower cost of living. So three distinct advantages of Pittsburgh are size, affordability, and safety. So those three factors, size, affordability, and safety, often lead to Pittsburgh being known as America's most livable city. And so we'll go on a little bit now, and I'll tell you a few more things about Pittsburgh and why we are considered America's most livable city. So we can see on the picture on the left is a picture of campus, and on a picture on the right is a picture of Pittsburgh, and the arrow pointing out the location of where Duquesne is located within the city. So the campus picture on the left, you can see the university is located on 50 acres of hilltop that overlook the city. And while we are considered an urban campus, when students are on campus, they often feel like they're in a park-like setting. However, if students want to venture into the city, whether that be to see a concert, go to a restaurant, or attend a sporting event, that's all within walking distance. So lots of accessibility to activities, but yet still isolated and sort of with their hilltop setting and a park-like setting. So Pittsburgh was very famous and became famous originally as an industrial center. We were a big steel maker. We made steel for the Empire State Building, for the Golden Gate Bridge. But about 40 years ago, that all changed. And now the three top industries in Pittsburgh are technology, healthcare, and education. So instead of factories and manufacturing centers, we're now home to companies like Uber, Google, and UPMC Medicine. So we can see we're a real success story in terms of that post-industrial transition as far as our economy. So another thing that you should keep in mind is with Pittsburgh is that we are home to about 15 universities. However, there are three big universities located in a 5-mile corridor, and that would be Duquesne University, Carnegie Mellon University, and the University of Pittsburgh. Altogether, there are more than 12,000 international students studying at these three different universities. So lots of diversity, lots of young people, lots of college students, lots of opportunity to interact. As far as Duquesne University goes, we have about 600 international students. And while we do have a large population of those 600 coming from China and India, more than half of those students come from about 65 different countries. So there's not only diversity on campus, but because of immigration patterns and the topography of Pittsburgh, which includes rolling hills and three rivers, we're very much a city of neighborhoods. So the diversity at Duquesne can not only be found on campus, but within the city itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Mia, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience as an international student. But before I do so, I'd just like to mention that if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to type them into the chat. Thanks so much. Over to you, Mia.
Thank you, Mike. Again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to talk about my experience as an international student. So before I begin, I just wanted to mention a little bit about myself. So I came to the US for my undergrad, and I went to the state of Ohio for my undergraduate degree. And then I came to Pittsburgh to Duquesne to do my master's degree. And then now I'm in the doctoral program here at Duquesne. So I've been around a little bit, and I thought I could talk a little bit about my experiences and how I first chose to come to school in the U.S. and then what some of my experiences were studying in the U.S. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, so the first thing that I thought about was, why did I choose the U.S. to come to school? And one of the main reasons was that I had some family and friends from back home in Sri Lanka, where I'm from, who lived in the US, or they were going to school in the US. So I thought that it would be nice to have people that I know close by, not necessarily in the same university, but close by when I was going to school in the US. And that made me feel a little bit more comfortable, coming to this new place and going to school here. What I didn't realize is just how big the US is. Initially, my friends are in New York, and I thought, just looking on the map, where I was going to school in Ohio was close to New York, but really it's not that close. So, so when I initially got to the university, I kind of panicked a little bit. I thought I would be very lonely. But then I found out very quickly that all of my American friends who were around me, they're very friendly. And so, once I made friends, it was very easy for me to navigate the university, going to class, and I didn't feel very lonely. And also, another very important thing that I found was that the universities really try to have a lot of extra programs for students. And so by going to these programs, I was able to make more friends. And then I was also able to learn about the American culture, and I was able to learn about the area that I was going to school in. So I made it a point to go to these programs just so that I could, again, make the friends and learn about where I'm going to school. And so another reason that I chose to go to the school in the US was because of its location. Megan, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in terms of location, like Mike talked about, Duquesne is located in downtown Pittsburgh. So it's very close to all these businesses, like Mike mentioned, a lot of public and private sector businesses. So we have a lot of programs at Duquesne that they bring in people from these businesses to help us during our academics. And so something that I didn't realize when I was applying to schools in the US was I don't have to apply for a degree that's only just biology. There are a lot of specialty programs that these US universities offer. So when I first started looking for schools in the US and I was looking at the degrees and the programs, they got very specific. So while you might be in the biology program, you can specialize in things like environmental biology or genetics. Um, and I specialized in forensic science. So I didn't think that was a possibility until I was actually looking at the schools and looking in depth and looking at the programs that were there. So I would suggest to always look for those specialty programs. And there are rating systems that American schools use. So it's beneficial to look at those rating systems and see if these specialties are good programs. And I know that Duquesne has a lot of good programs. Our business school is well recognized. And so, you know, having those rankings and those specialty programs will make you more marketable in the future. And then another thing that I didn't really consider when I was applying for my undergraduate degree, but then I realized very quickly that it is something I should have considered, are the opportunities you have as you study at the university. So, for example, when you are doing your undergraduate degree, if you have opportunities to do research, if you plan on going into a research field after graduation, then start it in at the undergraduate level. And so you want to make sure that the universities you're applying to have these opportunities for the students. So at Duquesne, we have a undergraduate and graduate research symposiums every year so that students get to practice presenting their work, their projects, all of their research that they've done throughout the year to the community. And so that's really good practice for when you go out after graduation. And then other opportunities also could include things like preparing yourself for after graduation. And so at Duquesne, we have the Center for Career Guidance or Center for Career Services. Yeah, that's the right one. And so they help you from the third year, from your third year till your senior year, till when you're graduating. They help you come up with your resume. They help you look for internships. They help you look for jobs. They have job fairs. So you want to make sure that you're looking at a school who has all of these facilities and opportunities so that you can take advantage of them while you're in school. And that's something that I hadn't considered when I was applying to school because all I wanted to do was just get into a school and start academics. But it's always important to think about what you're going to do in the future. So make sure that the schools that you apply to have these opportunities. Something else in terms of opportunities are student organizations. A lot of the professional organizations that I've applied for jobs, they don't look for just academics. They also look for, you know, the well-rounded student, meaning all the extracurricular activities that you've done. So when you're applying, look to see if the schools have student organizations that you can be a part of. And so while it might not be in like focused on your academics, it will give you the soft skills that are needed when you apply for a job. So, you know, communication skills, team building, leadership, those are things that you get from being a part of a student organization. So again, that's something you want to consider as you're applying for your schools and looking for your schools. And I know at Duquesne, there are both professional and um, uh, social organizations. So if you wanted to follow a professional one that's with your degree, then that's something you can do at Duquesne. I'm part of some education affiliate organizations because that's what my academics is about. And then I'm also part of social clubs like Duquesne Cultural Ambassadors. So always think about these extra opportunities that the school can offer you. So then I thought about why not talk about what it's like to study in the US? So the first thing I noticed when I came to the US was how friendly the people are. So I lived on campus for all 4 years of my undergrad. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I was really nervous about starting school in a place that I didn't know anyone. But really, what I learned was that American people love to ask questions from you, and they also like to be asked questions. So whenever I didn't understand something about the American culture, or just something about what was happening, I would ask my roommate, and they loved that I asked them about it, and they got a chance to answer those questions. And then I was also very open to being asked questions myself. So if my American friends wanted to ask questions about my culture, or questions about Sri Lanka, I would always say, go ahead, ask me. And I noticed that a lot of the American people want to learn about where I'm from, what my experiences have been, just because my experiences are a lot different to other Americans. And it's a very social culture. So you always have someone to talk to, you always have, someone who you can ask for help from. Um, and then so that actually goes into the classroom as well. Something that I realized was the professors in the US, they really want to get to know you, and they want to be able to help you. So, but they won't offer their help unless you ask them. So they really want you to develop this relationship where you feel comfortable asking questions, and then I would also suggest telling them about what you want to do in the future. What are your plans? What are your goals? Because those professors can help you. Say, for example, you want to go into a research field, then your professors can help you start a research project, in your undergrad, and that'll help you when you go into the future. So the professors really do care. And something that is great about Duquesne is that we are a smaller university. So the connection that you have with your professor is going to be much stronger, just because there's less students for them to have to deal with. So they have more time for you. And that's really great. And I've had a great experience with my advisors at the graduate level. They've really helped me in the, think about the future and how I can, get better opportunities after I graduate. Um, and then the last thing is the fact that Pittsburgh is such a diverse city, and that's really, really useful. Like I mentioned, I did my undergrad in Ohio, and it was it was a rural campus. It was a very small city, almost rural, I guess. And I lived on campus all 4 years, and whenever I felt homesick, there wasn't much I could do, meaning it wasn't a very diverse school. There wasn't a lot of international students. The city wasn't very diverse. So, if I wanted to go get something like some Indian food or something that reminded me of home, it was very difficult during my undergrad. And then when I came here to Pittsburgh, I realized, oh, it's so much easier because Pittsburgh is so diverse. Just like Mike mentioned, there's a lot of restaurants from different areas around the world. There's a lot of grocery stores. So it's very easy for me to step out, go to a grocery store, get something that reminds me of home. And so that's really helped me, lessen the feeling of homesickness or miss home. And so I like going to school here in Pittsburgh mainly for that reason. And then another thing is because Pittsburgh is such a big city, there's a lot to do. So if I felt, stuck, I was bored, I didn't want to be on Duquesne's campus, I just wanted to get out and do something, Pittsburgh is so big that I can do that. During my undergrad, it was very hard for me to get out and do that. And so I love going to the Phipps Botanical Conservatory here in Pittsburgh during the winter. Where I come from, it's warm all year round. So the winter is a little harder for me. But if I can go to the botanical gardens, then it reminds me of home. I feel better. It's just something that I do. And I feel that in Pittsburgh, there's always going to be something for everyone. And there's just a lot more to do. Also, like I mentioned before, the location in terms of opportunities really matters. During my undergrad, when I had to look for an internship, it was really difficult for me to find one because I didn't drive at that time. I would have had to take 2 buses to go to my internship that I was accepted to. And so it was a real struggle. But here in Pittsburgh, and you go to Duquesne, there's all of these private and public sector organizations that you can intern at, and a lot of it is going to be downtown where the university is located. So you can very simply just walk down the street and you'll be at your internship. And it's okay if you're staying on campus, again, because it's so close by. And then Pittsburgh has a very good bus system, so a public transportation service. So it's easy, even if it's in another neighborhood, you could go to your internship very easily. And I think that's very, very important when you're thinking about the opportunities when you're studying in the US. So these were a few things that I thought about when Megan and Mike asked me to speak today. And I hope these are helpful hints for you. And I think Megan's going to talk a little bit about what Duquesne's like.
Thank you so much, Mia. That was wonderful. I really appreciate all of your insight, and I'm actually going to reiterate some of the points that Mia made, which is great. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Megan Evangelist, and I am a Duquesne alumna. So I graduated from my bachelor's program and master's program at Duquesne. And I am currently the Assistant Director of International Admissions. So I had been a teacher for 10 years and had the opportunity to come back and work in international admissions and also teach in the School of Education. So I absolutely love Duquesne, and I was thrilled to come back and be a part of the Duquesne family again. So thank you so much for coming on today and learning about studying in the US and about Duquesne too. So as Mia mentioned, getting involved on campus is one of the best parts about being at Duquesne. So there are over 200 student organizations. Some are professional, some are service oriented, some are social. So there's always something to do. You're never going to be sitting in your room bored without an activity, which is great. So some of the main organizations are listed here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about a few of them. So we have 25 different multicultural student organizations. So their whole focus is to look at different cultural identity and different religious identities. So even though at Duquesne, the university is a Catholic university, we have people of different faiths from all around the world celebrating many, many different religious belief systems. So one of our largest organizations on campus is the International Student Organization, and they go by ISO. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you're able to search for this Duquesne University International Student Organization, and their Instagram handle is ISO DUQ. So please check them out and see what's going on with their events. They have a lot of different things happening. They do a huge celebration every year on campus where there's dancing and food. It's just a lot of fun to be part of this group of students. And then as Mia mentioned, she is actually one of our cultural ambassadors. And I work really closely with this group on campus as well. These students are fabulous. Their whole job is to work with our new international students that are coming to Duquesne. So they will be your support system to ask questions to really understand from a student's perspective what's going on campus, what living in the living learning centers are like, what going to classes in the US are like. These students are here as your support. So I included a website here. All of the students' profiles are listed on this website. So it's duq.edu/Faces of Duquesne. And you'll see on the website, there's the student's picture and their name, what languages they speak, some information about their program, if they're a graduate student or if they're an undergraduate student, and then their email address. So you can reach out to them. They're willing to talk to you. That's, something that they're very interested in doing, and share a little bit more about living in Pittsburgh and about Duquesne with you. So we also like to do some field trips. Mia had mentioned Phipps Botanical Gardens. So the picture here is actually a group of our international students and cultural ambassadors visiting this beautiful garden. So this is just the outside of it, but I thought I would point it out since Mia mentioned it. It's one of my favorite places in Pittsburgh too. So we do have many different sporting events at Duquesne. Duquesne athletics is very popular. So there are teams for women and for men. As a student, you're able to go to see the games for free without charge. So if you're interested in checking out, what does basketball look like or American football, it's a really fun opportunity to go and see what's going on with sporting events. And then also there is a Duquesne Council that plans different activities on campus for the students. So on a weekly basis, there are things going on specifically at a place called the Night Spot. Students come and do different activities together on campus, get free food, which is always great. And then there are bigger events, like they will host different famous comedians to campus. They will have concerts. They'll show different movies on campus. So if a new movie has come out, they will show it and it's free of charge. And also lectures. So those can be academic, but usually they're a point of interest for the students, which is a lot of fun to be able to go to something, no cost, no money involved, and just go and have fun with your friends. Also, we know how important food is. It's very important to me. And we want to make sure that there are a lot of different options for students. So as Mia mentioned, really feeling like sometimes you're isolated. You'll be so excited to arrive in the US, and you'll probably go through a few months of being almost in a honeymoon where you're just excited about everything being different. And then there will be a time that it'll be difficult, that things are different. So all of us in our office, Mike included, Hanyan included, Mia included, we all have been living in a different place. So I studied abroad while I was at Duquesne, and I was away from the US for 2 semesters. So it is exciting to leave home and do something different. It's probably the most exciting part of my life, to be honest. But then you do realize at a certain point that you really do have things at home that you're missing. And I think food can be a big comfort in that time. So at Duquesne, there are 11 different dining locations. So you have the opportunity to try many different types of food, but also identify the places where you like to eat, and maybe find foods that fit your palate, what you're used to eating at home. So I am vegetarian, I don't eat meat. There are a lot of options at Duquesne for this. Also, if you're vegan. And we do have a Starbucks on campus, which is great because I know everyone needs their coffee or tea to keep going. So that's another great thing too. And Mia also mentioned, which I'm very thankful for, about the employment opportunities in Pittsburgh and at Duquesne. So I know that when international students are thinking about coming to us, they're wondering about what can they do to start working as soon as they arrive. So we do offer on-campus employment. So students can come and work for 20 hours a week whenever they're in classes, and then they're able to work 40 hours a week during vacation periods. So this would be whenever you're not studying you have the opportunity to work up to 40 hours. So some of these jobs include working in the library, working in our bookstore, working in food services on campus. So we're able to kind of guide you to those positions. You're able to apply and be hired by those different offices or services on campus. And then students are also eligible at Duquesne to complete CPT and OPT. So CPT is curricular practical training, and this is part of your field of study. So it's usually part of your curriculum. And this we typically call an internship. So our Center for Career Development, as Mia mentioned, is really helpful in preparing you for this time. So they have a search service called Handshake that they get you signed up. They help you get your resume ready, your cover letter ready, and then you are able to connect directly with employers who work with our Career Development Center. So they help you to plan your internship, make sure that you're able to get there no problem, and make sure that you're supported throughout that process. And CPT, you're eligible for this after you've studied for a year in the US. And then for optional practical training, or OPT, this is your time after graduation to work in the US for 12 months. So you have an authorization period that allows you to work off campus. Most students tend to stay in Pittsburgh and find jobs here for OPT, but you're also able to apply for jobs throughout the US. So I just spoke with a student who's doing her OPT experience yesterday, and she just moved to Chicago for working in her field in education. So it's really exciting to hear where students end up, but she wanted to try a different city. So that's an opportunity to, she just spent her master's program in Pittsburgh, and now she's in Chicago trying out a new city for work. So we do work with you in our Center for Global Engagement to help with the OPT process and make sure that your application is complete and turned in so that you're able to be authorized for employment. And then also, if you are coming to the US as a STEM eligible major, you're able to extend your time in the US to 24 for an additional 24 months. So these designated fields are science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a list of approved fields that you're able to look at online to see if your program would be STEM eligible. So again, that would just give you additional time in the US after you have graduated to work. So now, as we're kind of closing up, I thought it would be a fun opportunity to share why you chose to study in the US. So please feel free on your Zoom navigation bar. You'll see something called chat, and go ahead and type in why you decided to study in the US. It'll be fun to just share some of our participants' responses. And we'll give you about a minute to just type in some ideas.
Megan, while we wait for everyone to type into the chat, there was a question about submitting financial support documents. The chat's asking, do we need to submit financial support at the time of applying or after confirmed admission? Sorry.
Sure. So actually, we ask for your financial support information after you've been admitted. So you do not have to submit any bank statement or proof of financial support until after you receive your admissions letter. So the process is that you would receive your admissions letter on the application portal, and then you'll receive an email from Duquesne. It's immigration@duq.edu. And that email will tell you what your estimated costs are for the first year. Then you are able to give us your financial documents to show support for that first year. Okay.
Thanks, Megan. We
You're
also have another question about, do you have Indian faculty? So my answer to that question would be that actually we have international faculty across all 10 of our schools, not just Indian, but faculty from all over the world. And we think that's an important part of Duquesne. And so, yeah, we have a very diverse faculty.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Mia, can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Okay, so I know you talked about all the great things about Duquesne and about being an international student. Could you just maybe briefly touch upon maybe what were some of the challenges you faced when you first came to Duquesne?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges in the academic setting was having that close relationship with the professors that they wanted. And I mentioned, that's a good thing when I was talking. But then for me, when I was going to school in Sri Lanka, we didn't have a very close relationship with our teachers. And so it was very hard for me to force myself to talk in class, to participate in discussions, or even to just talk to the professors about my future goals because I haven't done that before. So I think that was one of my biggest challenges. And then another one was learning how to learning the American culture in the workplace. So I did work during my undergrad in the university. So just navigating that work culture, even at the university, from what I know in Sri Lanka and the US. But again, the best part of it was that I could ask questions and I could tell my boss, oh, this is new to me. I'm sorry if I made a mistake. Let me know how I can do better. So it was always that open communication that really helped me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mia. And,
Of course.
just for transparency purposes, we should say that Mia was a graduate assistant in our office, and she adapted very well to the work environment there. So we do have another question. I can just address this quickly. Will 3-year degrees undergraduate degrees from India be accepted for graduate programs? So my answer to that is generally yes. However, you might be asked to do a credential evaluation on a 3-year degree. It depends upon the department. So generally the answer is yes. We understand that in the Indian education system, there is a 3-year undergraduate degree, and but it really, at the graduate level, we don't control admissions in our office. At the graduate level, those are controlled by the individual graduate departments, and they would make that determination. And like I said, they might ask you for a credential evaluation.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
So I thought I would just read out a few of our comments before we go to more questions. So one student said that they chose to study in the US because of the great resources, especially in computational chemistry. Another said, it's been a dream of mine to visit the US or potentially live there for a while since I was 13. Studying simply seemed like a fun opportunity that would also help me in the future. Another student said, I feel that experiencing an American community at a university and later OPT would help me advance my career. And then finally, one more comment from a student is, I chose the US because of its strong programs. I want to obtain a degree in marriage and family therapy. In my country, which is Russia, we have a huge stigmatization about therapists. In the US, the profession is more popular. So those are all really, really great comments about why you're interested in studying in the US. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I wanted to leave this slide up so that if you have any direct questions that you'd like to ask, you're able to email us at Intel Admissions. It's INTL admissions at duq.edu. And also Mia's email address is here. If you have any specific questions for Mia, she's more than happy to answer those. But we are still taking questions in the chat. So please feel free to go ahead and post those questions there.
Megan, can I answer the question from Samuel about the
Sure.
chemistry? So Samuel's question was, in the chemistry department, do graduate students work in a specific lab with a specific professor? So every department is going to be a little different, but typically there's going to be in your admissions letter, they're going to mention a name of a professor you're going to be working with in terms of research. But now, if you're in the application stage right now, it's always a good idea to reach out to a bunch of professors who are in the chemistry department right now, and mention to them that you're a student who's interested in applying, and ask them about the research that they're doing, because they always like to hear from prospective students before they just get an application. And that way you can also make sure that you're working with the professor who is the best for you, who's doing research in your area that you're interested in. So it's always good to reach out to them in the beginning during your application process.
Thank you, Mia. And we had another question about the acceptance rate of Kenyan students. Mike, I don't know if that's something that you know off the top of your head, but would you be able to try?
Sure. I don't know that. We don't actually track that per se. Now we do track, visa conversion rates. And we know that, Kenya seems to have a good conversion rate, a solid conversion rate that is not, outside the norm at all. So I guess what I would add to that is that Duquesne has had a long history of a relationship with the African continent through our theology department, through our Spiritan mission. So I guess that would be my general answer to that question. But no, we usually don't track acceptance rates per country.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
And I'm getting a question privately about living on campus and what that experience is like. Mia, would you be able to take that one?
Sure. So in terms of living on campus, it's always been, in my experience, a good one. Just because when you're on campus, you're really close to all of the resources that the university has to offer. So, just being able to go to class very easily or go to the library. And then even at night, the walk back to your room is going to be a safe walk, and you can guarantee that. And then also when you're living on campus, again, you're forced to make friends, and you're forced to meet new people. So that's always good to have when you're starting university. At Duquesne, there are several residence halls that students can stay in. Duquesne has a policy where undergraduate students, the first and second year students, are expected to live on campus. And then if you're a graduate student, there is a apartment style building that you can live in, so that you wouldn't have to live in like the dorm setting. And then if you have the apartment, then you have a kitchen so you can make your own food, which is again helpful, if you're like me and like to make food when I feel like I'm missing home. So living on campus, definitely there's a lot of advantages. And I think the biggest one is just being close to all of the resources that the university offers.
Great, thank you, Mia. That was really helpful. I'm also getting a question about if you have applied and don't have the decision yet, what should you do? Mike, would you be willing to take that one?
Sure. Well, one thing you can do is write out directly to Intel Admissions and ask what the status of your application is. I'm not sure how long your application, it's very important. If we don't have, one of the issues is if we don't have all the necessary documents on the application checklist, we're not able to process the application. So you might want to check your application, check your checklist, make sure that you've submitted all the necessary documentation. If that does seem to be the case and you're not sure why your application has not been decided upon, please reach out to Intel Admissions, state your case, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. We find that our usual turnaround on applications, on complete applications, is less than a week. So if this seems to be a problem, let's make sure that somehow you didn't slip through the cracks. Reach out to us and we'll be glad to address that.
Thank you, Mike. I'm also getting a question about, will this recording be available later? So we will post this webinar to YouTube and send out a link to your email address. I know some people are having issues with being able to hear the webinar, so the recording will be available to you on YouTube. Okay, well, I see that we're getting very close to the end of the hour. And I want to thank everyone for your attention for this time. If there are any more questions, please feel free to reach out. Okay, I see one more question coming in. The student has applied for chemistry PhD and the application is complete and being reviewed. When is the summer entry? So Mike, do you mind sharing that?
Sure. So at the PhD level, it's a little bit different what I was addressing earlier. So the way admissions works at Duquesne is undergraduate, international undergraduate admissions all come through our office at the Center for Global Engagement. Once you're a graduate student, those admission decisions are made at the graduate school level. So what I would say is, if you're having an issue, you're a graduate student and you're wondering about the status of your application, you should reach out directly to your graduate department. Summer entry this year, I believe, is May 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're a little bit nervous about that, or you're curious about what the status of your application is, especially if you're a graduate student, please reach out directly to the graduate department. If you're still having sort of some trouble with that, once again, please feel free to reach out to Intel Admissions and maybe we can sort of advocate for you with the graduate department.
Thank you, Mike. And we should also share that our largest intake is fall. So we're really gearing up for that now. And the first day of classes is August 23. So we will welcome you to campus at our International Student Orientation on August 12th. So we're getting excited for that and starting to plan all of our activities. And we're really looking forward to welcoming you to our campus. So I want to just wrap it up by saying thank you again for joining us, for spending this hour with us. I know it's a long time to sit and look at your screen and listen, so thank you so much for being here today. And as you can see, our staff and students are always willing to connect with you, answer any questions that you have. That's part of being the Duquesne family. So please do reach out to us. You will not be bothering us. It's our pleasure. So thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah. Thank you, Mia, and thank you, Megan, so much for joining in on this today. Thank you to our audience. We wish you the best of luck in your process. And as we've said numerous times, please reach out to us if you have any questions. So enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, whatever the case may be. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Bye, everyone.